Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the first Fire Safe Sonoma Speaker Series of 2026. I am Roberta McIntyre, and I am your host for today's program. For those folks who might not know, Fire Safe Sonoma is the county-wide Fire Safe Council and has been serving Sonoma County since 1997 and was officially recognized as the county-wide Fire Safe Council by the Board of Supervisors in 1999. Yep, that's right. We've been working in this space before wildland fire safety and risk reduction was popular. We live stream this program at 2 o'clock on the fourth Thursday of every month, except for the month of December where we're dark so y'all can enjoy the holidays without having to watch us. You can find our past speaker series programs on our YouTube channel. We are in our 6th season this year, so there's a lot of good information there for you to check out. And we almost never duplicate a presenter. However, it's been 5 years. We might start to run some of our past presenters through again, depending on what you all think we should have. Before I get started, I want to thank Team Fire Safe Sonoma for helping out today. With us today are Claire, Sydney, and Jeannie. They are our fellows. And we also want to welcome Sophia Levesque as our new county coordinator. And that's funded through a grant from the California Fire Safe Council. Sophia has been with us since early November of 25. So some of you may have already met her. We're excited to have her on board. She's already lightened my workload by, I don't know how to measure workload, hours and hours and hours. I want to say tons, but hours and hours. So community updates. Here's some news from last year. If you haven't already heard, one of our former staff, Emily Tugall, made a film about one of our projects titled The Fire Break. Emily did an amazing job with the film, and it's available on our YouTube channel. Be sure to watch it. It's 48 minutes long and already has over 350 views. Don't forget to check out the Fire Safe Sonoma calendar on our website for upcoming events, and to stay in the loop, subscribe to our updates. Feel free to share any events you may be promoting with us, and we'll get them on our events calendar. And let us know what you'd like to see us present in the upcoming year by completing the survey that we're going to drop in the chat. So fill out the survey, give us some ideas on who we might want to have on the program, and we'll see if we can accommodate that. And speaking of upcoming events in the program, back in November, Marshall Turbeville and I caught you all up on the Measure H Fuels Crew protocol and what to expect in the upcoming year. If you missed it, you can find the recording on our YouTube channel. And next month, we'll be joined by the Fire Forward team at All Hands Ecology, so mark your calendars for that. But today's speaker, this month, we are pleased to have Temra Costa with us today. Temra will be discussing her work in forestry, climate resilience, and regional economic development. As Executive Director of Regenerative Forest Solutions, she leads research and education initiatives across the country, actually the county, maybe the country, the North Coast, and beyond. She's also a published author and recently launched the Regenerative Forest Solutions Timbershed Project to encourage a more circular forest stewardship economy, which she will share with us today. I'm really pleased to have Temra here to start us off here in 2026. So Temra, take it away.
Great, thank you so much. Can you see everything okay?
Yes, looking good.
Good. Well, it's really wonderful to be here today. I'm so pleased to talk a bit about Regenerative Forest Solutions and our work to increase our capacity to steward our land through one of our projects, the Sonoma County Wood Recovery and Utilization Project. I really appreciate the great work of Fire Safe Sonoma and this opportunity to thread the needle a bit between fire safe communities in some ways that we might think about the full spectrum of what is required to thrive in what was once a fire-adapted place through the stewardship of federally and non-federally recognized tribes of the area that are still here and continuing the rich traditions. Today, we will not be talking about fire per se, and thankful that we didn't have a horrendous fire season last year, although they tell us now that fire season is year-round in California. But I encourage you to revisit the previous speakers, Devin Friedel of Pepperwood Preserve and Erica Lutz of All Hands Ecology, for their presentation on this series last time when prescribed fire was discussed, because it is an important tool in the toolbox. But today I'm going to share a bit about our research at Regenerative Forest Solutions and weave together the many needed aspects of stewardship and how to help meet the pace and scale that is required of us in these times to support our communities and our rich ecosystems so that they can continue to thrive. Our organization is relatively new. We were formed in 2021 with a mission to provide research, education, engagement for more resilient landscapes and communities. We have several programmatic activities related to our core purpose, and I have to thank our board of directors, our steering committee members for their support and efforts in our growth. Today, I'm going to hone in on the Sonoma County Wood Recovery and Utilization Project and the headway we've been making here in Sonoma County that's also rippled beyond. But I'll also encourage Sonoma County residents at the end to sign on to our letter to support more resilient forest stewardship economy, which I'll be talking about today. This is the forest that got me into this business. As a small private forest landowner with the forest that was once heavily logged, you could see here in this forest on one side of the road, there was a fire, a prescribed fire that was supported with all hands ecology. And on the other side is what's very typical across the landscape today. Sonoma County has roughly 1 million acres of land and about 513 acres of forested land. So my work really focuses on the more rural areas, although certainly there are communities located within them that we are concerned about protecting. But mostly we're thinking a lot about these forest ecosystems and what does happen when a high intensity fire comes through and creates more erosion and disrupts our watershed cycles as well as our biodiversity. So this forest was heavily logged. My partner, Jeremy Fisher, and I really engaged here. We leaned into the work of not only getting a forest management plan in place, but then we started looking around and knew that the work that was required was so much bigger than the property that we steward with 4 others. So it really became apparent to us. Not only did we have skills in place to be able to do the work on the land, and we were able to engage volunteers to do the hundreds of hours that are required to prepare before a prescribed burn can be held or hosted. We really noticed that there was just so much more that needed to be done. After we completed this prescribed burn, in fact, we did apply for additional funding to help us support the cleanup afterwards to continue to do the work in sections, because this is over 100 acres. So there's quite a bit of work to do. And we couldn't find public resources. We were like, there has to be something that can be done to close the gap on what's needed at a landscape scale and what resources are currently available. If our forest is like anybody else's, which it actually is, we knew that this challenge at hand was big and that people out of their own pockets weren't going to be able to cover all those costs themselves, nor were the other agencies or conservation organizations that are managing land were also struggling under the weight of the stewardship of our forest. And not only that, you have to think about forests grow by about 6% a year. So this isn't like you do a practice and then you're done with it. This is really like, I like to say, like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. We're in California. I'll use that analogy. So we're going to be painting the Golden Gate Bridge for a long time here. And hopefully we can do it in stewardship to place and thinking about bringing biodiversity back where it's been crowded out by dense overgrowth. So Jeremy Fisher and I started talking about it, and we're like, "Gosh, what could we do?" And he studied architecture at UC Berkeley and is a building science major. And he was working with his partner Marisha Farnsworth to create a company called Forestry Collective that would utilize the small diameter material and all this material that had to be taken out or that wasn't fire resilient, that was dying after the burns. Well, our place really became such a great case study for this work. Not only do we have salmonids in the creek at the Upper Green Valley Creek watershed, but we also have all this forested acre. And the site was a former site of a sawmill, G&S sawmill. That was up until 2005. So we're like, wow, if we could bring a little bit of milling infrastructure back, like, wouldn't that help maybe fill the gap? So that started me on this inquiry to formalize Regenerative Forest Solutions, to start researching some of the challenges that are being faced by forest landowners all over the state of California, whether you're public or private. We are all dealing with this challenge. So I'm so pleased that our next step was to proceed to apply for some funding. We're very grateful to North Coast Research Partnership, who selected us to conduct this study. It's called Assessing the Viability of Wood Recovery and Utilization in Sonoma County, and that was completed and published earlier last year. This work really discovered a lot of our challenges at hand and also enabled us as a nonprofit organization to galvanize support and partnership with a number of organizations and agencies in the county. So here's a list of some of the great organizations that we got to work with, as well as our technical advisors to the project. We're still working with many of them today, and we'll continue to engage with this cross-section of environmental organizations to county and state organizations as well. Maybe I'll share some like the key highlights from the study today before I get into the infrastructure and the regional economic development. But it's this private forest land ownership types in Sonoma County that really is the challenge for not only people when they manage really small parcels and they have a lot of forests that they don't know how to deal with, but also for our public agencies for how to keep communities safe in times of wildfire. So if you look at this bar chart, we have over 14,600 private forest landowners in the county. Now, from my analysis, this is the reason why Sonoma County is often left behind in some of the state funding. It's because we have this large landscape, 513,000 acres, with all of these ownerships. So that's a lot of people to deal with, and that takes a lot of coordination and a lot of work. This is a graphic that shows where the density of the material is. The darker areas are more lightly dense, and the lighter areas have more density of forest material in them. So you can see where some of the fires already passed through in those dark purple spots, which is really interesting to think about. We have a lot more going on here in the Guerneville, in the western Sonoma County area, that'd be District 4 and 5. And then there's also, of course, some in the eastern side. And then our neighbors, Napa, to the east as well. I know that the Miacamas and there's some areas there that are still full of material, and many of our agencies are working on projects that cross private and public boundaries. CAL FIRE is working on some projects. I know the FireWise and Fire Safe communities are doing such great work in those areas. But we're noticing there's like a real density of material here in the county. Well, why is that? And the challenge that we found, the number one challenge, is that really there lacks a coordinating entity. So when you think about what happens when forest stewardship practices occur, the trees are, if it's for a wildfire purpose, they're either chipped or burned typically, or they're hauled away if they're too large to be left on the landscape. So isn't that interesting? They'll leave it if they can, they'll chip it if they have resources to do it, or if it needs to be hauled away because it's of a larger size or scale, then that's what happens to it out of the county. So we're losing the stream of potential wood resources that we could be utilizing here within the county. There's a number of businesses that already exist that are taking some of the wood material that's from these treatments and are putting it into good use. There's Forestry Collective, like I mentioned. There's also Full Circle Mills, and there's many, many portable sawmill operators and kiln dryers in the county that are working. Well, these logs from, let's say, the wildfire treatment of 5 diameter, we're talking this size, small Douglas fir in those kind of choked out areas where maybe historically there were 50 trees per acre. We're now seeing hundreds and hundreds up to 1,000 trees per acre, according to some local foresters. We know that this is in a healthy state and that we really need to not only get more treatments on the ground to reduce the density so that we can ensure biodiversity can thrive, because native plants can't exist if they don't have any sunlight down there. But also we need to figure out what to do with the material at the end. So there's a lack of a coordinating entity, and nobody's really thinking about this woody material in the county before we got to the table. The second challenge is that we're really lacking wood processing infrastructure. Now, some might say, well, we do have a mill to the north, that's Redwood Empire, and then we also have Mendocino Redwood Company, even further north in Ukiah. But the truth is that those mills are not meeting our private forest landowner needs because there is that gap with the coordination amongst them. So, for example, last year, a local RPF had 10 million board feet of permitted material that he would have harvested if there would have been a mill to send it to. but there was no mill to send it to. So Sonoma County has lost this processing infrastructure, and the capacity to really treat acres is the outcome of that loss of infrastructure. This is a picture of that mill site I was mentioning. That's at our property where we've installed a commercial scale, small diameter mill, and we've been processing small Douglas fir and redwood trees that are byproducts that would have been chipped or burned or left in place and had no place to go. But it is actually a really great building material, and it's quite a shame that we aren't utilizing more of it. So the study was, it was my big aha moment. I'm an environmentalist. I love trees. I love to be out in nature. I love our watersheds. I love the fish. I've been following them and tracking them every winter. And it was really incredible for me to learn that sawmills are essential infrastructure. Just like we have the water agency for the conveyance of water and for cleaning it, just like we have utilities for providing us with electricity or waste disposal for pulling away our organic matter to be composted in central facilities, like the great work that Zero Waste Sonoma organizes. I have to say it was a real surprise for me to realize, wow, we really need these sawmills to be able to take care of our forests. And without mills and processing infrastructure, we can call them wood campuses. Without wood campuses, without a means to utilize this material, it will continue to go by the wayside. So when the material's chipped, it's oftentimes left in place, right? So that's because of the density of the forest, that's creating a fuel hazard on the forest floor. It's also creating a dampening effect for plants that want to grow there. So if you see these big piles of chips, you understand like the immensity of the challenge. If you're burning it, you're emitting carbon dioxide right away. So you're getting that GHG into the air if it could be used. There's a lot of material in this process that might not be able to fit in that 5-inch diameter and up kind of category. But if it does, wouldn't it be great if there was a place for it to go to be utilized and to be able to create this more circular economy between the people that want jobs in forest health and wildfire resilience, to people that make wood products, to people like you and me who might need a cutting board or a table now and again. Speaking of people that do woodworking, Roberta does woodworking, and I learned that about her when we hosted an event during National Forest Products Week last fall. And I'm excited that part of our goal for this work is that we will continue to host these events and bring together and help build community amongst all of our sectors, because even though it's a small community, we're all very focused on our own specific angles. So whether it's hardening homes, whether it's getting more fire on the ground, whether it's hauling and removing woody material to be utilized and upcycled, we all have our focuses, and that's what's great. So we'll continue to look to make opportunities to all come together in one space, and that's why it's great to be here again today. So I was talking about the different uses. Sometimes the chips used to go into streams like landscaping chips and mulches and things like that, but that's no longer the case. That has long fell by the wayside as a viable option for making some sort of end to this material. So really the highest and best use for wood is lumber. That is the top of the line. And I realized that I could have a chart here with all the various wood products that could be created, but I will just talk you through it. So lumber is the first, and then it goes through the size classes all the way down to soil amendments. And I know that there's several people maybe here listening or maybe people watching later that are really excited about biochar. I am too, as a soil science person and a carbon sequestration enthusiast. So biochar is one of those potential products when you can't use it. So our organization really looks at all of those different pathways. But unfortunately, the most economic, well, not unfortunately, but the most economically viable option at this time is really lumber. Biochar has some potential in the future, but the markets have yet to be established. So we are really excited about how could we enable the conditions that we need to make sure that we can take that material and make products that people need locally here in our region. So our work in phase 2 of the Sonoma County Wood Recovery and Utilization Project is really implementing solutions. It's been studied now for a long time. We've had quite a few studies that have happened, not only here in Sonoma County, but also around the state. So part of our funding came from the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation, which has funded 6 different regions around California. And this is where we think a little broader about our impact in our work is how can we support other communities that are also lacking infrastructure. So we've been doing some work with other communities in other places as well, and talking to our legislators at the state level about the need on the ground. California has relatively few facilities left. In the 80s, that's about the time when that mill on our site was in full operation. We had over 180 mills in California, and now we are down to just 29. A veneer plant up in the northern part of the state closed just a couple weeks ago when the main owners, it was Roseburg Forest Products, decided to move their operations to Oregon. So it's really wild that California, with all of its forest resources, and really, if you look at our forest resources here in Sonoma County, some of the best and most desirable characteristics, that we still import 80% of our lumber and 90% of all of our forest products. Those are US Forest Service numbers. So it's a shame. And we think that there's a better and higher use than just chipping and burning this material that could be turned into wood and used for different products and secured and decarbonizing our buildings. So if you think about it, a tree is in the forest and it's holding carbon. And when you harvest that tree, there's some emissions that come out of that process. But if you do turn it into wood and it goes into a building, it's stored in that building for a period of time. So it's a really beautiful way to extend the life of that tree when it needs to be thinned for wildfire ecological reasons. There's also other organizations like the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center that are really promoting their kind of gully stuffing practices. So there's all sorts of restoration that we could be doing in conjunction with some of this work to like make more circular economy out of this material. So again, we're moving into implementation. We're done studying. We really need to do the work. We need to actually step forward and say, now is the time. We know it needs to happen. We need more processing infrastructure to steward our forests in a healthy way. So also the second solution is establishing this coordinating entity. So Regenerative Forest Solutions, again, looked around the county and surveyed the landscape, and there wasn't an organization that already exists that wanted to manage woody feedstocks as well. And so we're very pleased that we were able to serve in this role. There's a picture of some of our collaborators on the bottom, but I wanted to show you kind of the landscape of all of the organizations that are involved. So we have Sonoma County governmental organizations and technical assistance providers. That's at Permit Sonoma and some of the other agencies. And that also includes our special districts, our wonderful Gold Ridge Resource Conservation District or the Sonoma Conservation District. We also have numerous other folks in the county, like Coast Ridge Community Forests is doing that great work, and they're part of the woods. And there's also other community organizations that are coordinating with their groups. Then we have the forestry and wood sector. We have the RPFs, the registered professional foresters, the licensed timber operators. Those are the people that can remove material legally. We have our hand crews, portable mill operators, and kiln operators. So our studies show that we need to almost triple our workforce within the county if we were even to meet our state mandated goals of treating 10,400 acres per year. Do we have a live chat right now? I want to
Yes,
do
we
a little
do. Yeah,
impromptu
yeah,
survey. Great.
yeah.
Put
We
in the
have
survey, or in the chat how many acres you think we treat in Sonoma County each year. The goal is 10,400. You can put in the chat your guess on how many in-forest treatments we're actually making.
we've got 6,500,
Okay, keep them
4,500.
coming. Keep them coming.
Yeah,
So I'm going to keep talking. We'll come
2,000,
back. We'll come back to that.
3,000. Yeah, folks are
Ooh.
starting to drop stuff in.
Oh, okay. Great. Great. This is fun. This is a good little exercise. So we have the need to establish this coordinating entity. There's all these different organizations and groups. And then there's obviously the people in our county, all of our residents and the buyers and the builders that might be sourcing this material on the other end. But the coordinating entity itself just needs to coordinate the flow of this material and track it, monitor it, determine all the ecological services and the carbon sequestration potential that's derived from it and lower greenhouse gas emissions. So that coordinating entity's job is very administrative in function, and that's one of the roles that we're providing, as well as outreach and capacity building for private forest landowners. And solution 2 is the infrastructure development. So our latest project and our endeavor for, gosh, we've been working on for the last 6 months is establishing Timbershed. So our study identified potential sites for wood recovery and aggregation throughout the county. We looked at the airport, we looked at southern part of the county, and we really found that the best opportunity was Barry's Sawmill and Lumberyard. So if you're from the area, you might know this place. It's iconic. It's been there since about the 70s, and the Barrys have done a really wonderful job supporting our community over the years by milling wood from the local area and from their own timberlands and from other people's timberlands. So the site has been for sale for a while, and we've started the process of raising the capital stack required to secure this property. We're very excited. It's a 32-acre site. It's much bigger than the one where we've been piloting that work, milling the smaller diameter trees, and it would enable us to really help support our county in treating its forests. Like I said, work isn't happening because there's no place for this material to go, and this would help relieve some of that situation. Now, wood processing campuses aren't going to solve all of our challenges, right? But we do hope that with creating a more robust and circular forest stewardship economy, again, that people can have jobs that are year-round instead of seasonal, ideally, that they're family-sustained jobs, that we can create wood products with a story, that we can better track the ecological value of doing this work on our watersheds and in our forests. So we're really excited about this project. It has its own website. It's timbershed.earth, and encourage you all to check it out. At this new campus, our role as RFS will be really doing a lot of the education engagement activities that are related to working with so many forest landowners in the area, while Timbershed itself will be focused on milling, manufacturing wood products, and doing specialty wood product creation. So we're excited about that. I am going to go back to this. So, oh, that was good. 2,800 was the number. Hey, Sydney, I owe you a coffee. Okay, great. So we're right now treating about 2,800 acres in forest a year. And our state mandated goal is 10,400. We've got a long way to go, and we need a lot of resources to be able to hit that higher number. And that's every year. That's annual treatment needs. And remember, there's 513,000 acres in the county. So just going to keep it going every year. And what we need to do is have greater capacity to treat for mixed and diverse age stands of trees and not some of the practices of the past. Now, we're in California, so we have the California practice rules, which are almost, I didn't do a slide about this, but they're almost the extra certification level of creating a more higher ecologically valued lumber product, just by virtue of being in California. So we have a lot going for us already, and there's even more coming down the line. So the California Air Resources Board is putting in new requirements that will require transparency and traceability with material, and we're excited about that. We think that we should be able to show the value of these forest stewardship practices for improving the landscape. So this facility, Barry Sawmill, again, 32 acres, not huge. It's like actually considered a really small mill. Its throughput processing capacity per year is 6 million board feet per year. So some mills are doing 1 million board feet a day. So this is a pretty small facility, but we think small is beautiful, which means that we will never outstrip the forest capacity to provide logs, that we will always have supply. You know, people talk about feeding the beast, and truly we're not concerned about that in the case of this mill and its scope and scale. So it's really exciting. The site used to employ up to 50 people, and we'll bring that number back. It's down to 2 or 3 right now, and we'll bring that number back up to 44 employees, direct jobs, and around 71 indirect jobs. That's in the forest services. And then those are some of our products. And you have to remember, like, it's not just wood products, it's wildfire resilience, enhanced ecosystems. It's all of these great benefits that we get to enjoy because of these activities. So lastly, I want to encourage you all, if you're interested in this work, if you support a more proactive forest stewardship economy, one that's taking care of the forest and doing the work to remove a lot of the overgrown material and creating the conditions for old growth characteristics again, we encourage you to sign on to our letter. This is on our website. So if we can get that in the chat, that would be really great. That link to the survey, I'd appreciate that. So people can sign on and join us. It seems like, there's a lot of concerns today. It doesn't seem like there's a lot going on in the world. And our little piece of this pie is that we're really dedicated to creating regional resilience through local manufacturing of wood and also stewardship of our forests. These are great things that our community needs and it will always need. So we're really pleased when times are chaotic outside of our county borders and within, that we can really focus on a project that we feel will have a tangible and durable, long-lasting impact on our communities and ecosystems. So that's our dedication and passion that we're bringing to this project, and our hope that we can be successful in making this a reality. If you're interested in reading our study, we have a 9-page executive summary. There's a code there, and it's also on our website. And then we have the full 180-page study that was conducted that goes into all the details. We invite your feedback on that and also engagement with our work and otherwise. So we're very excited about Timbershed, about our work to build a more resilient forest stewardship economy for Sonoma. And please sign on to our letter and reach out. That's all I have. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much.
Okay. So if somebody can go ahead and maybe pin both Temra and I, and then I'll toss some questions. Let's see. We've got a. All right. If one of our folks can watch the chat as I go through these, and if any questions come in while I'm running through, tossing these to Temra, go ahead and add them to the queue for questions for me, in my queue. So one of the things, Temra, that you talked about was identifying sawmills as important infrastructure. And I think this concept could be compared with the former public mulch and compost production site that the county used to run at the central landfill, Meacham Road. Do you remember that out there?
Yeah, I do remember Will Bax and his work there for sure.
Yeah, with that sort, looking at that model, albeit it's no longer there, has there been any thoughts about doing a public-private collaborative between what you're doing and maybe the county, have the county support it? Kind of like they were doing the site out of Meacham. I see this as something similar, especially in terms of, your concept of considering it, public infrastructure sort of, or could be.
Yes, I have done quite a bit of effort to reach out and engage the county on this site in particular, and it appears that it's not on the top priority list right now for all the things that the county is grappling with, which is quite a bit. So we're continuing those conversations. There's a lot of exciting things happening at the county right now. The potential creation of a wildfire mitigation organization. There's all sorts of movement happening internally. So whether or not this will be identified as a critical piece of what the county is interested in taking on has yet to be seen. But I've been doing significant outreach to engage.
Great. Yeah, that's good to know. I wouldn't, yeah, I kind of figured that because you're a pretty sharp cookie.
Okay.
And then you mentioned the coordinating entity, and you had a slide that kind of showed what that was.
Mhm.
And it looks like it's meant to connect landowners with the services, as well as to fold in to a higher level, coordinating hub site, if you will, or whatever,
Mhm.
overall. And that actually makes sense, and that concept actually could fold in really well with some work that some consultants are doing right now for the county. And so I'm going to, it looks like Kim Batchelder's on the call. I'm going to ask that Kim Batchelder help me remind folks about this
Yeah.
entity, your entity, as we have those conversations moving forward. And my dog is, you okay, kid?
Hey,
Okay.
folks.
Oh,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Kim.
I think that's a great idea, Roberta, and I'm definitely tapped into Temra's efforts and have tried to be as supportive as possible. And I look forward to finding out more about where the county can support this on a general level. Unfortunately, I'm just a minion of the many layers of government.
Me
So
too.
yeah, that's right. So thank you for a great presentation, Temra.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Appreciate the feedback. Um, so, another question. Are there any types of woody materials not accepted?
Right. So this is our big quandary right now. Typically, wood processing infrastructure of the scale and size of Berry Sawmill would only accept like 5 inches of diameter and up. The needs around the county are much bigger, but you don't want to be hauling and transporting smaller diameter branches, leaves, and things around. So that's again where RFS can come in to help support some research on mobile pyrolysis units. The Sonoma Ecology Center has been doing a great job on this. So what if when we're picking up logs, if that's our role after we secure the facility, we're also dealing with the smaller material that you don't want to haul away. So we're thinking about those things because not all material will be usable.
Right. Would it be a safe rule of thumb to imagine that, from a practical point of view, anything that's too big to chip in a typical, chipper could probably be taken to your site, repurposed there?
Well, we're actually taking material that we're fighting a chipper for many times. Like if
Oh,
you think
okay.
about smaller material, the
Yeah.
bigger material is a real issue, and we would love to be able to do something with that, right? There's people might not be aware, but during natural disasters in the county, windstorm, windblown events, like and lots of trees end up coming down. And the only thing to do with them, these large trees that are bigger than 12 inches that can't fit into a chipper, they get hauled and top ground into chips. So this is again the travesty of our times. We need to think more like ants and using every little bit of thing that we can out there. And this is just another way that we could do it. But you do need infrastructure and pretty incredible capacity through a sawmill itself to be able to process these trees into creating a long-lived future for them as lumber.
Yeah, ideally. And speaking of that, so some of the things you guys, when we visited your site out there on Pengrove,
Mhm,
or a site where some of the, the useful products are being created, it looked like there's a huge opportunity to make very custom architectural features for buildings.
mhm, for sure.
And I was pretty amazed when I saw that. I'm like, this is cool. You take something, that appears to be useless,
Mhm,
and you throw it on a truck, take it to your site, mill it, take it to the outfit on, that further refines the product into a useful architectural feature.
mhm.
Yeah, heck, we could go back to, you know, um, what do you call it? Mortise and tenon construction,
Oh,
and
beautiful.
start building houses out of this stuff for crying out loud.
Absolutely. Well, that's a really great point, Roberta, that you're bringing up. So there's primary processing. That is where you take a raw material like a log and you're making it into lumber. And then there's secondary processing. That's all the fine woodworking
Hmm.
that Sonoma County has historically had a ton of, but these have really fell by the wayside over the years. But I'm really pleased to say it's making its own revival. I
Good.
just heard a few months ago that there's a saw filer in Santa Rosa, and I never thought I would celebrate that, but that is a huge bonus because we've lost all these auxiliary businesses. If you want to, like, if you're from the ag industry or familiar with food, like I always liken it to meat processing facilities, or if you don't have that, you can't really eat local meat, for example. So if you don't have a sawmill, you can't buy local lumber as easily, or you can't treat your forests. So the thing with the bigger mills that are around, they're doing a great job. They're managing their forest lands, but it's not enough to meet the needs and the capacity that we really need to ensure that our county as a whole can treat the forest acres every year that we need to do.
right?
And it's only going to cover a portion. So I also want to like not, paint like this picture that we're going to fill in the whole gap by selling logs to the mill, right? That's not going to pay for all the treatment costs. It's CAL FIRE just published a report. It's on our website. They estimate between 39 and 50% of treatment costs can be displaced through the sale of usable material for wood. So that's not 100%. But right now we have 0% that's going in except for public subsidy and out of pocket. So it's much better than nothing. But I'm always very clear and honest that it won't solve all of our challenges, but it will create more circularity and opportunity to get bigger grants that will help support all these public and private landowners in taking care of their forests.
Yeah.
So a lot of times there's timberland investment companies, and they look at proximity to a mill to value a forest. So if you look at a tax basis standpoint, our operation of timber shed at the Berry site would increase the forest resource valuation for the county. So I would love a public-private partnership, but it's really a challenging time right now. So we're going to continue to proceed with purchasing it and continue to develop those partnerships over time.
Very good. I have a couple questions that are kind of similar in context, anyway. So, what are some misconceptions about the use of mills? And,
Mm.
this will be like a compound question. And with that, have there been any concerns from the public about using the mills, like in your use permit or the prior use permit? Was there any, during the public hearing part of that, was there any pushback from the community?
So I think that's the really beautiful thing about Berry Sawmill is it has an existing sawmill permit. So it's not going to have to go back out to the public for comment for our operation to exist there. Once we start, if we need to add something to it that's outside of the current use, which we don't plan to do in the near term, then that will come to the public commentary period. But for now, we would be operating underneath the existing permit. The lumber yard would stay open, the retail portion, and then we would start producing material. We're hoping to close escrow in 2026. I'm just going to be positive and just put it out there. We're going to do it. And then we won't be able to actually bring in material until about a year from that date. So we'll keep the lumber yard operational and going, but in that time we have a lot of revitalization and infrastructure upgrades to do.
Yeah, overall systems refinements, I'm sure, to get
Correct.
you'll be a well-oiled machine by the time you're ready.
Oh yeah.
But you've been doing this for quite some time. Now, if you can recall, I'd be curious to know when the concept landed in your brain.
Well, again, that was in this forest, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, right. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did
yeah,
talk about that
we
in your
conducted a
presentation.
prescribed burn and we had
Yeah.
all these non-fire
Right.
resilient Doug fir that died during that process. We're like, wow, it'd be really great if we could get those. They were 14 inches ish. It would be great if we could get those off the hill. So this is at a steep topography, which a lot of the county is. We're like, oh, it'd be so great to get off the hill and down the street. Well, the price tag on that was $5,000. So you have to like build all the legs of the stool at the same time. You can't just get the site. You have to have the markets, you have to have the products, and they all have to work together because you have this huge challenge of an industry that's kind of, it's like an ag industry, I guess. You have like up years and down years and pest years and
Right.
fire years. So there's going to be all kinds of interesting twists and turns on this journey, I would say.
How has the raising of awareness about what you're doing been going? I know I've seen you at least three, maybe more times in various venues, presenting the project and program.
Yeah.
Um,
I feel that generally we have support within Sonoma County, so pleased about that in general. Um, I don't feel any resistance anywhere. I feel like there's generally speaking support for what we're trying to do. There's support within the Cazadero community for our management operation of the mill, for example. So I feel a lot of support. I realize that this feels adjacent to a lot of priorities that are currently happening. So I believe it appears that people are hopeful that the market will solve the problem, but unfortunately, the market is not going to solve the problem on its own. It hasn't. So if the lumber industry were a really vibrant, booming market today, then Barry Sawmill wouldn't have been seen on the market for 6 years.
Good point. Yeah.
And if it were a booming market today, then we would have no problem lining up the capital because people just know that success was imminent.
And it's
But the fact is that there's so many factors. And I don't know if, and there's a challenge with the utilization piece between public land, for example, and generation of profit. So there is a gap there in the public's. We really want to launch more awareness about the need for that because without that, it's purely public derived financing.
right.
So there might be some disagreement that material from a regional park, for example, would love regional park material. How are people gonna feel about that? I don't know, but we'll, cross that bridge when we get there. So I think that's where maybe any sort of kind of
Yeah.
iota of conversation needs to continue to occur because this infrastructure is absolutely essential to do this.
Yeah. That's a good point. With any endeavor, you have the logical, rational aspect of it in the numbers, etc. But then there's also the emotional and
Right.
heartfelt end of it that you have to navigate as well.
Right.
Good point. Yeah.
And I'll continue to say I love trees and I want them to be happy and thriving and I want more biodiversity in our forests. We've lost a lot over the years and there's so much crowding. So
Yeah.
um, this is all good stuff.
A
But
crowded forest is not a healthy forest. I heard of this term about a year ago called the dehydrated forest syndrome, where if you
yeah.
have so many trees per acre and
Mhm.
they're all competing for the same water source, and it's particularly in a drought, it's really critical. But if you got all these trees competing for the same water source, they're all going to be unhealthy trees. Whereas if you go in there and thin it out and get rid of some of the smaller trees that, and open up some sunlight, etc.,
Mhm.
then you free up some of that water for the older trees, and then they get healthier.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, what we're talking about or what we're promoting is not new information. It's, our forests here were fire adapted landscapes when we arrived, and the no touch approach, the don't touch approach, has really put a deficit in our treatment needs. So, in order to bring fire back to land in a healthy way, in order to have an ongoing rotation of stewardship that's built into how people relate to forests beyond recreation,
Yeah,
we really do need proactive stewardship. So
yeah,
we want
yeah.
to keep them.
Question from earlier. Somebody wrote, well, I'm going to rephrase this a little bit and set it up. So we talked a little bit about the size of material that's viable.
Sure.
And somebody wrote, where does using this material as firewood fall into the pyramid? Is that a consideration at all?
Yes, we did have in the potential products hardwood, firewood, just because hardwoods have a challenge getting to market. So that is a possible product that might be developed. I think there's a really interesting place for RFS to play in community wood banks and different ways that we can help support the firewood being distributed locally through our nonprofit lens, and then the wood business can do its lens. The firewood industry in Sonoma County is pretty saturated, I will just say, at this time. So it's but there's so much wood out there. Like, wouldn't that be great if we could distribute it to people that needed it for heating purposes?
Yeah, if they need that for heat. I suspect that the firewood industry in Sonoma County probably isn't going to grow. Certainly, it's probably shrinking because of air quality requirements. And,
Right.
some communities say if you have a fireplace, you're not allowed to burn. As long as you have, other means of heating your house. And if you're building a new house, you're not putting a decorative wood burning appliance in
Mhm.
it because the local codes won't allow it because
Right.
of air quality. So it feels like to me that the whole firewood industry for Sonoma County anyway, might be a shrinking industry. So
Mhm.
that doesn't really help matters there, I guess.
It
Um,
doesn't. It could help folks that need support with that energy resource for heat. So,
yeah,
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 more of a
that's
community service kind of thing.
Yeah, and there are homes out there where that is their only source of heat. Yeah,
Yeah,
still, yeah,
it's chilly.
yeah. We're almost on time, but you mentioned gully stuffing,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if you can explain for folks what that is in case they don't know.
Oh, sure. I'm no Brock Dolman, but I will attempt to describe it. So,
Brock does a really good job of describing
very,
it.
very good. So I will say that, and you could go to oxtail.artsandecologycenter.org to learn more about their Fuels to Flows program. Really good one. So typically when you're removing material or you're limbing up, you're going to have a lot of branches. So you're going to have a lot of material with branches, leaves, and other things. What do you do with it if you don't want to chip it across the landscape or you don't want to burn in piles? There are ways that you can stuff it into non-class one streams. You have to be careful of kind of the legal water classes that you're working with, but it can prevent erosion during the rainy season. So you use that material on the landscape to slow water and help create um, kind of fill in those gullies versus just hauling it off site and using gas to do that, for example.
Yeah,
On-site restoration.
there you go. I think you did a good job describing it.
Okay, yeah. So if
What?
you have a gully, you're going to layer in all of those little bits in there, and then it's going to fill in with sediment over time. Thanks for the clapping. Always
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it's good for habitat, right?
It is. It's good
Yeah.
for that. And then it slows down kind of the gush of water. So you would want to put in some sticks that are going like this to keep those smaller pieces that are moving across the landscape in place. But again, there's some great diagrams that would help
I
describe.
feel like when I watch kids play in creeks, they do that naturally.
Oh, absolutely. And then Fish and Wildlife reached out to us. They're like, we need logs, for creek
Oh,
restoration. So there's just a lot of practical use for material on site. However, like our research and study looked at wood availability that wasn't in waterways because there's different regulations and permits. It's trickier. So typically we stay out of the waterways as much as we can.
yeah. Okay, before I get to close out, I want to make sure, Tamara, that you saw the message from Jessica in the chat.
Great.
It
Okay.
looked like a direct message more than anything. It looks like she's got some stuff up there in the Sea
Great.
Ranch that she wants to talk to you about.
Excellent. Okay,
So
good.
make sure you grab that before
Thanks.
we jump off. And thank you so much for a really cool presentation.
Thanks.
Glad to have you here talking about all the work you're doing and what's happening out there with Barry's Sawmill, which is
Yeah.
an icon forever. I remember when we first moved up here from LA, I was like seventh grade or something. My dad took me out there. It was still running.
Mhm.
And it was fun to walk through there, and he got some lumber or something from there.
Totally.
So
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's still open, so you can still go to the lumberyard and purchase. I will just close with the statement that we need all of us doing this work, from the home hardening to the in-forest restoration and stewardship practices to the wood operators and the forest practitioner. I mean, we just need everybody. It really is a whole ecosystem of people and effort and initiative, and the entrepreneurialness of this makes it so we might be able to do a little more. We might be able to treat more acres. We might be able to create more jobs that we need to do the work. So it all has to make sense. It has to make sense in the forest and on paper. And I think that this is a great solution to this big
I
challenge.
think so too. Yeah. So, folks, don't forget to sign on to the letter. It's up in the chat. If you didn't do that yet, go grab that link before we jump off. And if you don't catch it in time, I'm sure you can reach out to Tamara and she can get you the link to sign on to that letter. It's going to help a lot, I think. So thanks again, Tamara, for a great presentation. Thank you guys all for joining us today. We do this for you, our audience. I hope you all find this of value. If we didn't think it was a value, we wouldn't do it. So as long as y'all keep showing up and giving us good feedback, we'll keep doing this. And then thanks, special thanks to Team Fire Safe Sonoma, Claire, Sydney, Sophia, and Jeannie. And I want to remind folks, upcoming events. Next month we'll be joined by the Fire Forward team at All Hands Ecology. So mark your calendars and we will see you guys in February at our next speaker series. So thank you everyone. Appreciate it.